guys. We can get started. Sorry, I look a little tired. I'm not feeling too well. I have a little bit of fever, but I wanted to make sure, we did this call. So if I lack a little bit of energy, I apologize. But I'm feeling a lot better than I was this morning, but still not 100%. My name is Sharad. I'm the owner and founder of REsimpli. The purpose of, as a lot of you guys are joining this, I see a lot of regular faces, but we do these calls every Tuesday, 2 o'clock, with the intention of just kind of sharing. It's not necessarily just for REsimpli users. Most of the people on these calls are using REsimpli, but even if you're not, you're more than welcome to join through our mastermind. So the goal with these calls is to make them more business focused and REsimpli focused. But again, most of the stuff that I go over is going to be REsimpli focused because that's what I'm using in my business. A little bit background about myself. I live in Toronto, Canada, but I invest in Northwest Indiana. That's where I've been investing since 2010. So for anyone who's not familiar with Northwest Indiana, it's right outside of Chicago market, practically a suburb of Chicago, but happens to be in Indiana, about 30 to 45 minutes drive from downtown Chicago. That's where I used to live. So that's how I picked the market. We do mostly fix and flip, but as the market is changing, we're pivoting a little bit more towards turnkey properties, doing more of buying the properties, renting them out, and then selling to investors. That's what we're focusing a little bit more on. And then I also own a property management company in Northwest Indiana. So that's why our focus is a little bit more on turnkey properties over fix and flip right now in this market. So what we're noticing right now, just a background, just kind of an update on in our market. It's definitely been noticing a little bit of slowdown, especially in some of the neighborhoods that are not top neighborhoods, until like 3 or 4 months ago. So we invest in Lake County, just one county, basically Lake County, Indiana, and one city that Gary, Indiana, if any of you guys are familiar with that market. It's not, I would say it's like a C neighborhood, C plus D minus neighborhood. But until 3 or 4 months ago, just because how strong the market was, it was not very difficult to sell those properties. But now it's getting a little bit more difficult to sell those properties. Just even to give you guys kind of an example, I mentioned on this call, so we sell a lot of properties through Roofstock. We have these properties, rent them out, and have a property management company managing these properties, and then we sell them through roofstock.com. But my project manager reached out to Roofstock, and Roofstock has actually stopped listing properties in this particular city, Gary, Indiana, just because the buyers are not interested. So they look into that, focus more on the neighborhoods where there's always going to be demand. For sure, there's going to be a little bit slowdown in the market, but in the long term, you feel the neighborhoods that you feel comfortable with, that the people most, in the neighborhood that people want to live in, whether it's for rental, like in-demand neighborhood rental, or buying properties, especially for the first-time home buyers. Those are the strong market. That's kind of what we're focusing on. In our market, just for reference, that's around 150,000 price point. So we have 3 properties under contract. One with the ARV of about 150, another one is ARV about 135, and there's another one which ARV of about 130 to 135. So that's the price point we're really focusing on, because it gives us a couple of different exits. Either we can, initially what we want to do is we want to rent these out, sell them to investors as a turnkey properties. But if not, then the next option is to sell them as a retail. And the worst case scenario is that we sit on that as a rental property for some time until the market turns around. So that's what we're doing in our market, focusing on multiple exits to make sure we're not buying in our market, for example, any property that's over 200 to really over 250. We're just passing on it right now because we only have one exit in our market, unless that $250,000 property is a really good deal given where the market is. So that's kind of what we're doing in our market right now. Anything you guys are noticing before we get into the call today? Anything you guys are noticing in your market, slow down or still steady in some neighborhoods or whatnot? Eric, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so we're here in Milwaukee. We're down about 15% to get stuff sold within the 30-day mark, which has been surprising. But we're on front of it. The realtor we work with does all investors. He's got over 100 houses year to date sold. So we're really on top of it between us and students. And between price drops and or seller concessions, we're about 15% below what would have been confident numbers. So
I,
we're prepared for it too.
and what price point
So
are you mostly?
250 or less. So we're in the 150 to 250 range.
And when you're comping, I was going to say, when you're comping property, you're taking like 10% off the ARV, like how are you comping?
Yeah, so when we're buying now, we're definitely taking 10% off the top of what our the listed for comps, not necessarily what their sale price. We're using that as our comparable analysis. If we're buying right now, we're buying at 90% of that, less actual really hard repairs. We're still sticking with the 70% rule. We haven't adjusted that any lower to, I don't want to hit it both on the ARV side and on the formula, but we've been maxing out seller credits to get these things sold. So 3-4% has been making a big difference. And we offer that up front. We list it at the right price, but then, put in a dollar amount, and that's helped us sell most of our inventories under contract.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're putting it for the stuff that we're putting on the market. My agent is putting in the agent remark that we're going to offer like 3 to 4%. And then we say, in order to help your buyer buy down the credit points or whatnot. So that definitely helps. But for sure, in the market that are not like strong neighborhood, we've definitely noticed a slowdown.
That's big time. I think we're saying 50% off the board, but in our area, we've got kind of a northwest side that was generally strong rental, and then it became a good home buyer. But just like in the last pull down, those prices really did drop. We've got nice houses in those areas that are very hard. The one remaining one is like that as well. So I think that the people that are traditionally moving from maybe rentals up, that market is being hit, whereas the middle of the road stuff, like the nicer areas in our $250,000 price points, are doing fine. I don't have anything over 400 to really be able to speak about in our market.
I talked about that in a call like a couple of months ago. We had a property that was the most expensive property we bought, with the ARV was 700,000 when we bought it, and we were going to have over $125,000 spread on that property. But by the time we listed it, it was right around the time the market started changing, and we ended up selling it for cash for 580 or 585. And I think with our holding costs, interest costs, and everything, I think we lost about 25,000-30,000. But I was just happy to get rid of it. So I was just sitting on it and just keep paying interest costs. So
the good news, and I'm sure everybody else is experiencing this as well, but once you have the market's really changed, your confidence when you're going out and talking to sellers, just it follows with it as well. So we still bought 3 houses this last month, but these are deals that every one of them I would have been like, oh my God, that's the most incredible home run 3 months ago. Now I'm just like, all right, we bought it right. It's safe. We're going to move it. And, it's our mentality changing just as much as the market that needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And then as I've also mentioned, like when you're comping property, when people are buying houses, they're not buying houses based on what they can afford to pay for a house. Counts based on what mortgage payment they can afford. So that's very highly driven based on the interest rate. So somebody who's making, let's say, $50,000 a month gross, and then they can only afford, let's say, $2,000 in monthly mortgage. So that's what is driving how much house they can afford. So interest rate being 3% at the beginning of the year, and it's gone up to over 7%. But what somebody can afford to pay for a house, that hasn't gone up. They can still only afford to pay $2,000. It's not like their income has gone up from $50,000 per year to $100,000 per year. The income is more or less the same. So their budget, what they can afford to pay for a monthly mortgage, has stayed the same. So the interest is having huge impact on what somebody can afford to pay for a house. So just keep that in mind. That's why, like for us, that $150,000 price point is really interesting price point for a solid neighborhood, because at that price point, your rental amount for a house is almost going to be more than what the mortgage payment would be. So then you have people, buying FHA in our market, so they can actually become a homeowner for almost the same amount of price that they would have to pay to rent that house. especially with the credits and everything. So keep that in mind if you're in that neighborhood where you can, buy the prices at that point. Bill had a question. What was the site you used to sell your turnkey properties you used? It's called roofstock.com. I'll put it in the chat. Yeah, so what we noticed, my project manager did a call, and then one of the cities where buying, just because, like our egg definitely gone down. Roofstock is saying, no, we're not listing any properties in that neighborhood for the time being. So we decided not to buy anything in that neighborhood. All right. If you guys any other question, let me know. Otherwise, we can get started with today's call. Today's call is about how to run your daily huddles and weekly meeting. This is what I do in my business. I'm more than happy if you guys give me feedback on something that you guys are doing that's been super useful in your business. I would be more than happy to do that. Take your feedback. But this is what I do in my business on a daily basis. When I'm doing call with my team, the daily huddles that we do 9:45 to 10 o'clock every morning, this is basically what we're going through. So it'll be, I'll be on the call, my lead manager, and then my project manager and my acquisition manager, both of us are on the call. So we're basically going through this section right here. One thing we want to make sure is that task view for every single person is 0. It's not going to be 0 at the beginning of the call because it's going to show some tasks that are due for that day. But we want to make sure that we check with the team that if there's any tasks that they have due for today, that for some reason they won't be able to do it, or if they have any questions about completing those tasks, or if there's any task that should have been completed before the call and it's not completed, then we go into the reason why it was not completed. So this is the first thing. We make sure that every single task that the team members have are completed or will be completed by the end of the day. If not, then what might be the reason for that? And then this, make sure open messages. So open messages, if you hover over here, we've divided that section to open leads and buyers inbox. Open leads are any leads that have called you or texted you back and you haven't responded to them. So basically you haven't closed the loop on those leads. So we have open leads right here. So we want to make sure there will be some open leads in the morning when we're doing a call. So those would be the calls that came in or texts that came in overnight. Some sellers responded back or they called back to some of our drip campaigns for our marketing. So we're going to make sure that this would be, so we'll quickly go through that and make sure all of those would be 0 by the end of the day. So we go through, make sure that, if my lead manager, especially, she's making the first contact and then she doesn't have any questions on that. And then the buyers inbox. So if you send any messages to your buyers and anybody that's responded back, you can see any new messages that came in. You can just click right here. It'll take you directly to the inbox to see if you've had any new messages coming from the buyer. And then the next thing we do is make sure that all the internal team messages have been responded to, or if anybody has any questions, for example, if my project manager tagged me on something on a note, so we go in and make sure that if there's anything that needs to be addressed that I haven't addressed yet, or anybody in the team hasn't addressed yet. So we go through this, and then the next thing we look at is any abandoned leads. So abandoned leads are any leads that essentially are not on any drip campaign or don't have any pending tasks, meaning that nobody's working on those. So if I look right here, I have in no contact made, I have 20 leads, and 20 of those leads are not on any drip campaign. And 11 of those leads don't have any pending tasks. And then I have 11 leads that have no drip campaign and no pending tasks attached to them. So of these 20 leads, that means I have 11 leads that nobody is on my team is working on because they don't have any drip campaign attached to them. And they also don't have any pending tasks. So we want to make sure for us, anything except dead lead, this number should really be 0. And if it's not, we go in and just kind of review and see why, and you can click right here and it takes you directly to those. Again, my account is going to look a little bit different from yours. It's a test account, so we're making some updates with the pipeline, but the functionality as far as like clicking right here and taking you to the main page will stay the same. So we go through and make sure, okay, we have 11 leads in no contact made that don't have any drip campaigns and also don't have any pending tasks. So we make sure that there's going to be either they need to go to the dead lead because if they don't have any follow-up tasks or drip campaign, otherwise we need to figure out what drip campaign to put them on. For us, when we are working in our business, of the, I would say about 1,500 to 1,700 leads that we're working on, at any given time on our active leads, there's about 10 to 15 leads. Everything else, pretty much, we're working through automated follow-up. So at any given time, there's like 10 to 15 leads that we're actively working on from our main leads page. And then everything else either goes to a warm lead or it goes to a dead lead. So active leads, think of it as any lead that you feel like you can close within next 30 to 60 days. Those are the ones that you're actively working on. You want to keep in the active leads page. Everything else should, go into it with an automated follow-up, should go into a warm lead. Or if not, if you feel like, there's no deal to be had there, then you move it to dead lead. If you keep your main active leads pipeline, clean, it's going to help you more effectively follow up with the lead. So that's kind of what we do with our team on Daily Huddle. Anything you guys are doing that I might not have covered? Any questions on that before we go into like our weekly meetings that we do?
Sharad?
Yep.
I've got a quick question on that. I have a lot of leads in my REsimpli CRM due to my lack of following up, right? I think what I'm hearing you say is if I put those, when I go through them and I've got a lead manager helping me part-time now, if it looks like a really good lead, I'll keep that active. If it's one that's I don't think will close in the next 30 to 60 days, you're suggesting maybe use the warm lead categorization for those, and then comb back through those or put them on drips and maybe schedule some follow-up calls for 1, 2, 3 months out. Is that kind of the strategy?
Yeah, exactly. So any lead, let's say if you get a lead that calls you back and says, hey, I'm interested, but we notice this a lot in our market, that we would get a lead to call us back and say, I'm interested, but I need to, before I sell my house, I need to find another house, right? Or I just want to, just going to see what the house is worth. I'm not going to be ready to sell for next 6 months, for example, right? And there's no need for that lead to in my active lead because I'm not actively doing anything with that particular lead, right? What I would do at that point, what we do in our business is we put it on a drip and move it to warm lead. So we make sure that it's on an automated follow-up and somebody on my team is going to be working on it. So depending on the situation, how much information we have for the person, we have like 15, 20 different drips that we use. If the lead comes in from online, then we use, a separate drip campaign for that. Or if we have the name and address available, then there's a different drip. If we don't have the name and address available, then there's a different drip. So you go through, you have different situations, but the idea is the same. The idea is to just follow up with them, those leads, at least at a minimum every 30 days. Again, the message doesn't have to be any complicated. It could be just something as simple as, hey, Mr. Seller, you called us about your property at 123 Main Street. Are you thinking about selling now? It could be just as simple as that. The most important thing is to get in touch with those leads every 30 days. And then you can, once you do that, then you can keep mixing up your messages. And one thing I really recommend is for drip campaigns, use, definitely text messaging, calling, but every now and then throw in a direct mail piece also, especially if the lead initially came in through direct mail and you've been trying to follow up with them through calls and text messages. It's really effective to just throw in a direct mail piece as part of your automated follow-up sequence. So then they actually get a direct mail postcard from you saying, hey, just been trying to follow up with you and see if you're interested. Just kind of breaks the, your chain of like just calling them or texting them with an actual direct mail piece. But yeah, the idea with active leads is anything that you feel like, you have a chance of, getting a contract signed in next 30 to 60 days max, I would keep them in active leads because you want to actively work on them. Anything beyond that, put it in a drip, move it to warm lead. And then this is where everything will get flushed out for you. So let's say if somebody from your team moves it to a warm lead, forgets to put a drip on it, then that will show up right here. So you want to make sure everything except really dead lead, this number is really 0. If it's not, that means there is one lead in your pipeline or there's some leads in your pipeline, those that are abandoned, nobody's working on them right now.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions, guys, before I get into kind of what we do with our weekly calls? So anything any of you guys are doing on your daily huddles that is super effective that maybe I could implement in my business? Cool. All right. So for our weekly calls, what we go through is, I'm just going to change it to this year just so that I have in my test account, I have some data populated. So what we go through on our weekly call with this is with my lead manager on the acquisition side. So by default, this is set to, when you come in last 7 days. So we do our weekly call every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. It's the same meeting, so when we come in, the data is already updated. So I don't have to do anything, but just for this purposes, I'm changing it to this year. Again, in my testing, also have some data populated. So what we're doing is, this is something we would have already gone through in our morning huddle. So when we're doing our weekly calls, we're basically going through every single lead that came into our pipeline. So we can see how many leads came in, how many appointments we had, how many offers, how many contracts. So the first thing I do is I personally go through based on the lead source that leads came in. So we'll have like 6 or 7 lead sources that we get leads from. Our PPC, paper lead, need to sell my house fast. And then, we'll get random direct mail lead right now in our market. So I'll click right here and then we'll see, okay, this is in, for example, no contact made. And if something I notice, in dead lead, I'll click on that lead and I'll just quickly review it to make sure, okay, this is in dead lead. So I'll go through and kind of, maybe listen to the call if something seems odd. And then if it goes to dead lead, then there would be a reason why it was moved to dead lead. Most of the time for lead that's moved to dead lead, we notice that it was just, a solicitation call. So those are the leads. Another thing we notice in our market is if the initial call came in and it was just a missed call and it's just a missed call, we'll put them on a drip for like 2 weeks. And after that, if you don't get a response, in those cases, we move it to a dead lead at that point. But I'll go through that. I'll review just kind of looking at every single lead. So at any given time, we'll have about 30 to 35 leads coming in. So I'm going through every single lead, just kind of making sure, okay, we have the information. And then I'll click on that lead and see, all right, what's going on. If something is in contact made, appointment set, then that's, we'll go through those appointments separately. But initially, if something has been moved to dead lead, then I want to make sure that my lead manager did not move something to a dead lead that really is not a dead lead. And then also if something got moved to warm lead, I want to make sure that it wasn't a lead that we could have made an offer on and actively worked on, that if it went to warm lead, and it was a proper reason for it to go to warm lead. So that becomes like a training exercise also with your team member, just to kind of go over, okay, we moved this to dead lead, but we could have actually moved it to a warm lead, made an offer on it, moved it to warm lead, and just put them on an automated drip sequence or offer made drip sequence that we have. So that's what kind of we're going through on a weekly basis. And then also, especially on the paper lead and PPC leads, we go through and every single lead we're going through and making sure, okay, we got this lead coming in. Why did we have a lead come in from Texas, for example? It happens sometimes with PPC, we'll get like a random lead come in from a different part of the country. So if you notice, we got like, 2 or 3 in a week that came in, not from our market, just from random lead. So that's something we'll flag down. We'll reach to our PPC team and say, hey, we got these couple of leads from Texas, for example. I'm not sure why. Can you just check our PPC campaign and make sure we're just focused on Northwest Indiana market, for example. And same thing on our need to sell my house path or any paper lead that we have. So we'll go through, if we have some paper lead, we'll click on that and make sure that if we have a whole bunch of leads that came from paper lead and we ended up moving them to dead lead, then I'll check with my lead manager, hey, what was the reason? Did we reach out to need to sell my house path or wherever the lead came from, and try to get a credit if the house is, for example, listed on MLS, if the house is being sold by a wholesaler. They have like 4 or 5 different reasons. So we go through and make sure that if you're paying like $300 a month or $300 a lead for lead in from need to sell my house path, and then if it's a lead that's not really a qualified lead, then we go back and get credit for that. The main thing the first thing I'm doing is I'm going through every single lead that came into our pipeline and just making sure that it's in the right stage where it needs to be. As you do more of these calls with the team member, they get trained on it and it becomes easier and easier. That goes much faster because you right away know, okay, this moved to dead lead. We have a number for Google My Business campaign where we've closed a couple of properties in the past, but in last year, we haven't gotten anything. So every week I'll notice like 2 or 3 leads will pop up from Google My Business, but those are always dead leads, just random missed call when we call them back. There's no voicemail, there's nothing set up, but we'll still see pop up. I'll just click on it. I'm like, oh, okay, you start noticing some interesting things. Even on the bandit sign, we did some bandit signs like a long time ago, 3-4 years ago, and then just stopped it after that. But we still have the number active, and we'll still get like every now and then random leads pop up, even though we're not using that number anymore. It'll still pop up, and then we'll click on it. We're like, oh, we know these are dead leads. It just, once you've done it for a couple of times, you'll kind of start noticing some things that are happening on a weekly basis, and it makes it much more efficient. So the first thing we do is go through right here, and every single lead that I have by lead source, I'll go through and you see, okay, every single lead that I have, is it in the right stage in my pipeline or not? Whether it's an active lead, warm lead, or dead lead. So that's the first thing I'm making sure. And if my lead manager has any question about a particular lead, so this is the perfect time to go over, how would we handle this situation? Or if something like this happens, how should we handle that moving forward? So those kind of things we go through. So that's the first thing, go through every single lead that we have based on the lead source, just to make sure that every lead that came in is in the right stage in your pipeline right now. The next thing we do is the appointments that we had this week. Again, they would be same leads that you had. Now think of it as a funnel. You start out with 50 leads. 50 of those, out of those 50 leads, maybe 10 will go into appointment, and then out of those 10, maybe 4 will go into offer, and 2 might go into contract. You're starting with the top part of the funnel, how many leads came in. The next thing is appointment. So this will go in and say, okay, so we had this appointment, and then we want to make sure where it is in our stage right now. So this one shows, due diligence. Again, this is in my test account. So you are not going to see due diligence stage in your pipeline, but I'll see, okay, this one is appointment. And then if I have an appointment coming up, let's say on this one, or the appointment already happened, or it's going to come up, then we'll see, all right, if there's anything that we need to look into with this appointment, any questions I have or lead manager has about this lead. So we'll go through that. So just like that, we'll go through every single appointment that we had in our pipeline to see, okay, what happened with that appointment? What was the outcome of it? Are we moving it along? Ideally, the goal should be once it goes into appointment, then we're making an offer on the property. And then from there, hopefully we're getting a contract on that. So that's what we would do. And after that, the next thing would be, once we've gone through our appointments, okay, how many of those properties did we make offers on? So we're going through those properties in our pipeline, just making sure, okay, these ones we made offers on, where is it sitting in our pipeline? Is it still sitting in offer made? If you made an offer, like what's going on? Like, why do we not have a signed contract? Is the seller going to sign, not going to sign? Then I'll go in, for example, if I have something like this, and we go through, and then we're waiting for a contractor walkthrough. So I'll go in and I'll tag somebody on my team and say, my project manager, can you please confirm with the contractor walkthrough the numbers we get, for example. So we'll go through and do that. So as I'm doing my weekly calls, I'll go into a lead. If I have a question follow-up for someone, either I'll tag them and add a note for them, or I'll create a task if I want something for my lead manager to do. So I'll just go in, I'll just create a task for my lead manager about, it might be like from something from a template or something that needs to be followed up on. So we'll just go ahead and create a task, basically making sure that it's something, a next step for every single lead that we have. And if we have a property that we made offer on, and the seller says, for example, we made an offer of 100,000, the seller is not going to come below 150,000, then we'll go ahead and move it to an offer made follow-up sequence, and then just take it out of our offer made, move it to warm lead at that point. So we'll go through every single lead in our offer made, and the next thing is then we go through all the leads that we have in under contract, just to make sure the properties that are in under contract for us. Every property that we get under contract, we do contingent on a contractor walkthrough. So we'll make sure that we get a contractor walkthrough done within the timely period of making sure if the contingency expires, let's say tomorrow. So we make sure our project manager knows that we have only until tomorrow to get the contractors in and have a number. Otherwise, we'll be locked in if something comes up with the contractor walkthrough, like a major foundation issue or something going on that's like totally unexpected, then we'll be locked into the contract. So we'll go through that and make sure. And if like something comes up, then I'll tag my project manager on that and just make sure that somebody is following up on that or create a task for them. So those are the main things we're doing. And then for me, what I will do is I'll go through the KPI. So this is kind of more on a monthly basis. I'll go through the KPIs for me in my business. I'll look at, okay, how much money did we spend in marketing this month? How much revenue did we get? I just kind of look at overall the data and the conversion for my financials, just to make sure that everything seems okay. Nothing really stands out, nothing significant that I noticed. If I noticed that we had 21 leads and then we had 0 qualified leads, for example, from paper leads. So if we're spending about $5,000 a month in need to sell my house fast, so we want to make sure that a big majority of those leads are qualified leads. So if I notice that we had 21 leads, for example, came in from my paper lead and all of them were unqualified lead, then you're catching that before you end up spending a lot of money, like tens of thousands of dollars. So I'll go through this on a monthly basis, but on a daily basis, like I mentioned, this is like we're looking through this section really quickly on our daily huddle, and then on a weekly basis, we're looking at this data. Where did all our leads come in from last 7 days? Which appointments did we have? How many offers did we make in the contracts that we got? So we're reviewing that on a weekly basis. So that's what we're doing on our daily huddle and weekly meeting. Any questions on this? We see there's some questions in the chat. I had an onboarding call with your staff and I have a question with probate. I work with. Danny, you want to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
How are you, man? Yes.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so I had a call before, and I was talking about because I do go after a lot of probates, and I've always gone after them, but I was just trying to see how I can import them into the system, because I referenced when I talked to the administrators or executors of the state, and I wanted to find out how to import them with the property information of the person, the deceased, and then also PR, the person I'm talking to. I don't know, how do I import them into the system?
So these are like leads.
Yeah.
Are these already
probates.
leads, or these would be like
they're like leads,
but you're like prospecting them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I want to. The reason being is because I want to call them through the dialer. Right now, I call them through Mojo, but I would like to keep everything in here.
Yeah. So if you look into my account, so you guys won't see this in your account. So you notice like we're rolling out our own dialer and then websites also. So what you will be able to do with the update that we have coming out is you'll basically be able to select any of the leads that you have. So first of all, what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to take your file that you have of probate properties and then just import them into list stacking. I mean, you can still import them, but you're not able to call out of list stacking, but you will be able to import those properties into list stacking. And let's say if you have whatever campaign you want to do it to, you can select those properties and just click send to dialer, and then just very easily push it to like a probate campaign, and then assign it to whoever is going to call, and then just do that. Just like that, it's going to go ahead and create a campaign for you, and then you can go ahead and just start calling. And then after that, once you've done that, next week, or if you're doing it on a weekly or monthly basis, however often you're doing it, you can just come back and add new list to list stacking and just push those properties to the same campaign. So you can just keep pushing it to the same probate campaign. And let's say if somebody was interested at that point, you will be able to, either while you're talking to them. This is just push them to a lead.
This is like, can you show me an example of, do you have a probate in here? Like the reason being is like when I'm talking to somebody, I want to reference the estate of the property. You know what I'm saying? So when I'm talking to an administrator, hey, hello, hi, John, I was calling regarding the property at such and such, referencing the estate. I wanted to basically,
you'll be able to add any information that you have about that property. I'm sorry, I'm not super familiar with probate.
Okay.
Yeah, but you'll be able to add any information that you have. So you'll have the owner information, property information, mailing information, and there'll be another section for notes that you'll be able to add notes also. So the other information that you have, you might be able to upload it as a note. But how many properties do you have on, like, is there on a weekly basis, monthly basis?
I get a list every week, so I could probably have
Okay.
100, like for depending on the counties. I have LA
Right.
County, then I have San Bernardino County, Riverside County. So with all those combined, I could probably have a few hundred.
On a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you want for now, what we can do for now is like we can add those for you as active leads and put them in no contact where you can just call from there. And if you want
Okay.
to send over one of the files to me and I can like go over like what's the best way to get that data imported.
Yeah, I think they sent it over to you, but they're just waiting to hear back from you. I sent it over to one of the guys. I can't remember his name right
Okay.
now.
Okay, I'll follow.
Yeah.
I'll follow up
Okay.
with them on that.
Okay.
Cool. All right, awesome.
Perfect.
Cool. Guys, any? Yeah. Go
And
ahead,
as far as the
any-
sources, like I guess when you have the different sources, have you had the bandit signs and all that? Can you
Right.
add your own source or manage that, or are there already preset sources
Not
in there?
add, like, is there anything that's missing that you use in your business and it's not here?
Like for instance, like if it's probate, or what would you?
I
That's
mean,
why.
you would have, so you would have probate under, depending on whether you're going to send them a postcard, I
mail.
mean, direct mail
Okay.
or cold calling. So
Okay.
you would have it,
But
like
direct
if
mail.
I show you, yeah, so it would look something like this. You see how I have direct mail probate?
Oh,
So
okay.
you would have like cold calling probate. So your
Got it.
lead source would be cold calling, and then your campaign would be probate. Any other questions, guys, on the weekly or daily calls? Anything you guys are doing that could be really that's really effective for you guys that I didn't go over, or any questions are kind of what I went over with what we're doing with our daily and weekly calls?
I have a question.
Hey, Sarah.
When you set the dashboard for a person, it's showing all of their roles. So if I have a person in, let's say,
Yo, what's
acquisition and
up?
dispo, it's showing tasks for all of, for example, this person as disposition leads when I want to know just how they performed as acquisitions and what leads their call stats were for that. Is there a way to separate?
Yes, you can do that. So if you have somebody on different roles, so basically you're saying, if I understand correctly, you have John Doe, John Doe is your acquisition person and also your disposition person, but you want to look at that data separately, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So you can go into this section right here on data, go to leaderboard, and then you can filter based on the roles. Then you can just do based on the acquisition manager role or disposition manager role.
Okay. So not the dashboard, but the leaderboard.
Yeah, not the dashboard, but the leaderboard. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Sharad, I
Any
got a
other?
question.
Go ahead.
Hey, so you were talking to Danny right now about uploading a list. So that list
Right.
needs to be uploaded into the list stacking. And then from that point, we can create a campaign. And then from there, we can go ahead and we can make calls to them.
Yeah, no, what I was saying was that's going to be coming out to everybody's account in over next 2 to 3 weeks. Like basically, you will have a dialer added to your account. You'll be able to add dialer to your account so where you can push your leads from list stacking into a dialer and just start calling from there. So you could take your records and then you can create any number of campaigns that you want from list stacking, and then just go into any campaign and then just start calling. So for example, if I, let me go into a test campaign right here. But yeah, basically what it'll look like is any properties that you've added, you just click right here. I mean, this one, I don't have any phone number. You'll basically be able to click call and it's going to pop up. You select whatever script you want to use, whatever voicemail you want to drop after the call is done, which phone numbers. You might have multiple phone numbers that you're using for cold calling. So you can choose any of those phone numbers. And then, if you want to do auto dial or click to dial and just do this, and it's going to pop up something like this. And there will be all your information about the specific property on the left, and you can toggle between different tabs. This will be your script right here. You can set up any script that you want, and then your dialer will be right here. So I don't have any phone number, but if I click call, it's going to start calling that prospect. And once the call ends, you just fill out the disposition of that specific call, and then click call next record. And within a couple of seconds, it'll start calling the next contact. And if somebody was interested, and then you just push them directly to a lead from within the system.
Awesome. Okay. So
yeah, so this will be coming out to everybody's account in like next 2 to 3 weeks. We're just finishing up testing right now, but once it's done, then it'll be added to everybody's account. I mean, it'll be an add-on feature, but if you want to add it to your account, then you'll be able to do that in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, perfect. And that's going to be a single line dialer?
It's going to be a single line dialer to begin with, and then eventually we'll once we go live with this, then we'll work on a triple line dialer also.
Okay, and will you guys be checking the phone numbers to make sure they're not spam or they're not showing up
Correct. Yep.
as spam and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we'll be doing that just like that. So if you notice in my account, you'll see like a tab REsimpli dialer. So all the phone numbers that you have, it looks something like this, spam check. So we'll be checking those on a weekly basis, and then we'll also be remediating those phone numbers.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So say for instance, we get hit as spam, at the beginning of the week. Could we just send you an email and let you know that we've been hit as spam? And then
you don't have to do that. We check that on a weekly basis, and then we remediate those numbers on a weekly basis.
Okay, so weekly basis. All right, perfect. Thank you.
So weekly basis. Yeah, so we all the numbers, they go through spam check, and then anything that comes out as spam, we get those numbers. So you don't have to. So if you have a number that shows up as spam, you don't have to like delete that number from your account. You can keep it because we'll get that remediated. And if you look at my account, it's going to look different from what it looks in your account. So if you're buying numbers for your dialer, you will be able to buy multiple numbers at the same time. If you buy a number for a lead or buy it only lets you buy one number at a time because you want to buy just like one number. But for dialer, you're typically buying multiple numbers to start cold calling. So you'll be able to select multiple numbers and then just go in and then quickly just go from there, add them to a group, and then just go ahead and buy multiple numbers. But yeah, any of the number that shows up as spam, we'll go ahead and get those remediated for you guys. We're already doing that for anything in leads and buyers, and we'll do the same thing for cold calling also.
What
but
about
if the number
DLC?
shows up as a 10 DLC is totally separate. So that's something you have to submit your information. You have to go through the process of getting it. And to be honest, like it's getting more difficult. Like previously, you did not even need your EIN number if you were just doing, if you only had less than 5 phone numbers, I believe, you could just register as a sole proprietor. But now the cell phone carrier, so everything with 10 DLC, guys, I just want to mention, it's nothing from our end. It's everything is from cell phone carriers like T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon. So if you notice that, you were able to register a couple of months ago, but now the registration process has changed or they're asking for additional information, it's like we have absolutely no control over it. And even the service that we use, Plivo, Twilio, they have no control over it. It's all dictated by cell phone carriers, unfortunately. So we've had some cases where, companies that are using REsimpli, most of them were able to get their 10 DLC status taken care of, but some of the companies that we have, the cell phone carriers are actually asking for a copy of their tax ID to show that they have the EI number from IRS. So it could happen, but yeah, 10 DLC is a completely different process from spam check. And 10 DLC, just so that only affects texting, it doesn't affect calling. So, but every number that we have in REsimpli, you can call and text. But let's say if your 10 DLC registration is not complete, and then the 10 DLC is live, from cell phone carrier side, it will only affect your text messages, not the calls that you're making. So just something to keep in mind. But it hasn't gone live yet. We've gotten a little bit extension on to get everything submitted. I mean, to be honest, it's also our carrier that we're working with. Some of the things are also new for them because we could register some of our users who had less than 5 phone numbers without any EIN number, but now that's not an option available anymore. So even if you have just one number that you have in your system, you still have to go through the same process as somebody who has 100 phone numbers in their system. All right. Any other questions, guys? Danny, I'll send you my email address. Yeah, I message you my email address.
Hey, Sharad, is there a way to find out if there was any unanswered, or how many unanswered calls came through within a week or a time period?
How many calls that your team did not answer?
Correct. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out, kind of keep a KPI of live answer.
Yeah, so I mean, live answered, not bad, but
yeah, I want to
you
know
can-
how many like total calls came in last week and how many we didn't answer, basically.
just trying to think. I don't think we'll have the data on how many were not answered, because even if it went to voicemail, we would not be able to confirm whether it was actually a live answer or not. But let's say if you want to do that, you could go right here into the call log section, and then in the communication type, select incoming call, and then it'll show you all the calls. Let me change this to, I don't even know if I have any incoming calls in the, yeah. So it'll look something like this. So you'll be able to tell how many of those were missed calls and how many of those were, but let's say in this case, somebody called in and left a voicemail, it was still registered as incoming call. But somebody who called in and before it went to voicemail hung up, then you'll be able to see how many missed calls versus actual incoming calls. So for us, if the call wasn't answered, like somebody called in before the voicemail came up or somebody answered the call, it will just show it as a missed call. However, if the call was answered, either with through a voicemail that you have set up or somebody actually answered the call, then it'll register as an incoming call. So this is what you'll see. And then you can see, like, if you see this, that means this was a repeat caller. And if you see this was a new caller that called in. Yeah, so this is where you're able to tell either it's a new caller or either it's a missed call or incoming call. So for incoming call, we don't know whether it was a voicemail that answered the call or whether it was actually somebody from your team that answered the call. We will be looking into that, but I don't think that'll ever be like 100% accurate. Like there's some like machine detection that goes into it. So I don't think it'll be 100% accurate, but at least for missed calls, we can easily tell that this was not answered. The ones that are answered, those are the ones we have to see, okay, whether this was answered by a live person or by an answered machine. But yeah, you can go into your call logs and filter just to kind of get a sense of, if you notice, like in this case, my demo account, I noticed, 80% of these calls are missed calls. I'm like, okay, wait a minute, something is going on. Either they need to go to a voicemail or, somebody needs to pick up these calls like really quickly.
Can you filter those by the new versus the repeat caller?
Let me see. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think oh yeah, actually, yes. Sorry, I haven't done this in a while. Yeah, you can do that based on repeat caller or new callers. Yeah, sorry, sometimes even I get to remember, no, yeah, this is pretty cool that, we can do this.
But there's no dashboard. You would just have to create a bunch of filters down to track this, like per person kind of thing.
Yeah, like we will be adding a dashboard related to this also, like specifically related to communication, like how many, so you can see a dashboard of how many calls came in, how many of those were answered live, how many were missed calls. So we are working on that. It's not going to be something that's going to come out this year. It's something that's going to come out next year, kind of what I showed you. So there will be a dashboard around it. So you can see, and then you'll be able to, there'll be something like this, but just only related to the calling that you have the system. So incoming calls that are coming in, and then you'll also be able to filter it based on an individual. Okay. Abbas, I had a question. Are we able to do bulk SMS marketing from REsimpli as reading from batch leads? No, Abbas, we do not allow bulk SMS except to the buyers. So sellers, you cannot do any bulk SMS. And honestly, the reason for that was 10 DLC. And even the bulk SMS that you do to your buyers, you can only do from a toll-free number. But sellers, you cannot do any bulk SMS. It's just honestly, it's getting very, very challenging with bulk SMS with the whole 10 DLC registration. And I'll also say you have to be super careful when you're doing bulk SMS, because you are, so think of it this way, like the information that you're submitting to cell phone carriers, you're giving your company name, your contact information, your EIN number. So essentially creating, a profile, and you're submitting all this information, and it's not specific to, a single software. So for example, if you create, if you submit your 10 DLC information through REsimpli, and for example, let's say you are really spamming the system, for example, and cell phone carriers like shut down your brand, your 10 DLC brand that you have. It's not that you can go to a different platform and then just go through the same process, go through a new process, and then you can start texting through the new system. No, I mean, your profile, it's going to be shared among like all the different systems that you are using. So just, you got to be careful that, especially with the spam, the whole purpose of 10 DLC is to prevent, shutdown on the spam system. So you got to make sure that you're being careful with that. All right. Any other questions, guys?
If a number gets marked as spam, can you do anything about that?
Yes, sir. So if your number gets marked as spam, you don't have to do anything. We will get it remediated. So if you see something, one of your phone number shows up as, if one of your phone numbers shows up as spam, then you don't have to do anything. We will get it remediated for you on a weekly basis.
Okay, great.
Okay. Yeah. So we do it once a week. So you should see it updated like Tuesday or Wednesday of every week after we do the remediation process. Right. Any other questions, guys?
I got one quick question, Sharad. Is there any way that we can see like if I'm looking under my acquisitions manager page to see, so like you said, over the last 7 days or something, or whatever time frame you choose, is there any way to see how many calls and SMSs they made over that time frame? Because I believe it only says over the last 7 days in calls and SMS.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can look at so in the home dashboard, it only goes back to 7 days. So right here, just because how the chart is built. But if you want to look at a longer time period, you can go into this section right here and go into leaderboard, and it will default to this year, but you can change it to any other time period also. So if you go into this section, go to leaderboard, and you can see for any time. So it defaults to this year, but if you want to see kind of last month, it shows you, it's pretty in depth. Like it even shows you how much revenue they brought in, what's their average revenue, how many deals, contracts, offers, appointments, how many calls they made, how many SMS they sent out, and what was the average call duration, and what was the total call duration for them. And you can filter that based on any time period that you have.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Sharad, does the dialer have the capability of recording the calls for?
Yes, it will. So anytime you're making a call, you're talking about the single line dialer from list stacking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it will record every single call that you have.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Sharad, thanks for your time today.
Yeah, absolutely.
The RVM, I'm trying to work on the templates for the RVM. When it does the voicemail drops, should it be dropping voicemails under different area codes, or should it be coming from the number you buy from REsimpli?
No, it'll come from the caller ID will be the number that you have in REsimpli.
Okay, because I was testing myself out in some other clients, and we were sending out the voicemail drops. It was on the caller ID, it was coming through like on different area codes.
No, I mean, it should not. Like if I go right here, so if I go into this lead and if I do send RVM, then it should come from like whatever phone number that I have for this campaign. So it should come from this 224 phone number. So the number that you see right here, sending from, that's the phone number that should pop up as caller ID. And the way the RVM system works is when you're sending it out, it will actually show you, it'll ring for like half a second and then go to voicemail. So it'll ring for half a second before anybody can answer, then it'll go into the voicemail. So, but it should pop up with this, the caller ID.
Yeah, I tried using myself
as a phone number that should.
Yeah, sorry, I tried using myself as like a prospective, client, and it comes up like I have a 708 area code, and then my area code for the home buying business is a 219.
Right.
But when that comes in my caller ID, it comes in as like a 708 area code. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, it should not. Yeah, if you wanna, have you submitted a support ticket on that?
Yeah, I poked on, so they're looking at it. I sent them a loom,
Okay.
so we'll see what happens.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'll get it checked also. I'll follow up with my team on that also and see what might be going on. But yeah, it should be the ringless voicemail should come from like this, whatever campaign number that you're sending your message from, or that you have for the lead. That's what should come up as the caller ID on the ringless voicemail.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any other questions, guys? Anything else I can help you with? Thank you so much, guys. This was a great call, and the recording will be available in a couple of days on our help center and also on our Facebook page. Facebook group will be available in next like 30 minutes to an hour. Cool. All right, thank you guys. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you.